This is the Topkats Rebel Connection. USA crime labs present false court results. Millions allegedly jailed. Yes, you heard the title right, and this is an enormous problem in the country, with crime labs, state crime labs throughout the country presenting false court results and therefore wrongfully prosecuting millions. Allegedly, millions of people who are actually innocent or who has not done what they are being convicted of in court. This is an enormous problem, and it is going somehow underreported. It is going somehow ignored. It is going somehow at a very, very rapid pace. Because when you do the research like I have done on this issue, if you just spend 3-4 hour days, 12 hours, at least half a day researching this information, you will find out how enormous this problem is. And I know for a fact, just judging from a hypothesis standpoint, that this is ever growing. Because when you take into account the 50 states that we have in the United States, when you take into account just 50, that would be about 50 states times 25,000 possible people from each state, give or take a few. That would be 1,250,000 people who could possibly, very probably, and I must add reportedly and allegedly, are being sent to prison. 1,250,000 a year. That is possible. Just do the math. Take an enormous state like Texas, a very, very big state. In Texas alone, I could say, just extrapolating with the finds that I have uncovered from my research, that 50 to 75,000 people in Texas alone, through a possible corrupt state lab science syndicate, if you will, U.S. crime labs that have scientists there, chemists there, who will report false and fake results. Just take that into consideration. Texas has around 28 million people. So 75,000 that have been wrongfully convicted is not a far stretch. Now, above Texas, as far as population for the United States, is California. California is approaching 40 million inhabitants. And just think about how many people there could possibly be wrongfully convicted, and the crime labs there presenting false court results because of the large population. There is unfortunately a small demographic in all cities, in all quote unquote civilizations, especially in the West, which fall to the wayside, which all too often become homeless people, or those who are ignored because of their age, or possibly because of some ailment that they have contracted, and they fall to the wayside. And perhaps they are elderly and have fallen out with their family members or what have you, and there's no one to look after them, and they become prey. And especially to the system, to the state system. Very often I have found in the past, with different incidents that have happened with people in my life, I have found that if you do not show the system upon arrest of your loved one, your family member, what have you, if you do not show the system that that particular person is missed, that that particular person that they have in custody is a family member, is someone who is cared about, who is someone that is thought of, then the system most oftenly will take advantage of them within the system. Let's say perhaps if they're incarcerated. Let's say perhaps if they are in a USA court, brought up on charges which have been trumped up, no pun intended, which have been trumped up in order to convict the particular person, and the science that has been used by the chemists there in the state labs is totally false and fake science. Who's going to come to their rescue? I would say 80% of people in the United States do not have the money on tap that's in their bank accounts that can afford them the luxury in this circumstance to hire a lawyer or a popular, certified, successful law firm. They can't afford to hire them. They can't afford to pay for these type of services. Therefore, when they go into the court system, they get appointed a lawyer that is presented or provided to them by the system. And very often, with all due respect for those lawyers who are provided to those who give a damn, I'm talking about the ones that do not give a damn. I'm talking about the ones that are just showing up because they must show up in order to receive the check. I'm talking about the ones that have lost all lust and has lost all faith for the declaration of justice, for the much needed justice, rule, and law. Those are the type of lawyers that I'm talking about. And very often those lawyers are given to those who are not able to afford the best legal services, or they are not people who are cared about, who are not going to be missed if they are wrongfully prosecuted and put into the prison industrial complex, and on and on and on. My name is Otis Q. Pate, here on the Topkats Rebel Connection, touching base with you today about USA crime labs presenting false court results while millions allegedly are jailed. Topkats Rebel Connection. Edutainment wrapped in eclectic music. And right before we went to the vibe session, I was speaking to you about California and Texas. California is the number one most populous state in the United States, and Texas is second. Florida is third at almost 21 million. New York is fourth at almost 20 million. Illinois is fifth, almost at 13 million. And Pennsylvania is at 13 million. Coming in at number 6 and 7 is Ohio, almost at 12 million. And I'm just giving you the top 10 here. Next is Georgia at number 8 with approaching 10,500,000 people. Number 9 is North Carolina at 10,146,000. So we'll say 10,500,000. And last but certainly not least is Michigan at number 10 with almost 10 million people that are part of the populace there registered. And let me re-mention that California was number 1 at almost 40 million, and Texas is number 2, almost at 28 million. So when you just do basic math, and that's pretty much all I'm capable of doing anyway, you can see why there's such a great concern, because if the mainstream media is not running this type of information in heavy rotation, we're not going to find out about it, because it is inside information. And on top of everything else, for all these people that could very well be going to jail wrongfully because of false positives, as the old oxymoron goes, false positives that are claimed by chemists from USA state labs, which cause very probably, reportedly, and allegedly millions of USA citizens to go to jail. We have to look at that whole system and how it has to be regulated, because most of the system for state labs, unbelievably enough, are not regulated. Some areas more than others, but as a whole, we can pretty much say that it's not regulated. On our channel at youtube.com/Topkats Pride. Topkats is spelled with a Topkats, Pride. We have videos that are a bit more in depth about this whole situation, because it's enormous. Because my mind starts racing when I start thinking of this situation, because I'm pretty sure that this has been going on for years. I'm talking about at least since the late 1800s, early 1900s, most definitely right before the civil rights movements in the 1960s, late 1950s in the USA, where people are being brought up on charges, convicted, put in prison, and all of the charges are false. All of the charges are presented by the means of using fake science. This is provenly so. Well, with that, I have a report that I put together for you, and it delves into the many different states in the USA, from New York to Texas, amongst other states that have been caught using fake science in the crime labs. So, let's go.
How about drums? An instrument everybody loves. Let's get down, down, down.
Here on the Topkats Pride channel, lately we've been focusing on information and intelligence that can be researched about the huge scandal, the enormous scandal, the gigantic scandal involving forensics and crime labs in the United States. The feature for these most recent uploads has been in reference to the state of Massachusetts in the United States. And because of a lab scientist there, a pseudo lab scientist there named Annie Dukin, and a colleague by the name of Sonia Farrak. These two women were at the forefront of over 43,000 people being wrongfully prosecuted because of the false science that they provided to prosecutors, that they provided to courts, that they provided under testimony. If you have not seen those videos, please go to the channel and look in the video upload section, because the forensic science labs in the country are mostly unregulated. There are some parts that are more regulated than others, which my research shows, but as a whole, the whole forensic science lab is not regulated, and they need to be regulated. Because if they were more regulated, for example, then there would be more checks and balances, and there would not be 43,000 people, at least in one state, like in Massachusetts, where people have been wrongfully prosecuted time after 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 time, etc., and so on, squared to the power of at least 3. This is absolutely ridiculous that people have to go to jail wrongfully when life as it is in society is very difficult for the most part to go through day to day without breaking a law that might get you put in jail. It's already more difficult than it should be in order to remain free, in order to maintain an unblemished police report. You know, so when someone does a background check on you, your record is clean. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of laws that we are privy to, but none of us know. Most of us do not know about these laws at all. The judicial system says that ignorance of the law is no excuse. The definition for regulation is the control or maintain the rate or speed, like a machine or process, so that it operates properly. Synonyms of the word regulate are control, adjust, manage, balance, synchronize, modulate, tune. Another definition for control would be something, especially a business activity, by means of rules and regulations. For example, quote unquote, the code regulates the takeovers of all public companies. Other synonyms: supervise, oversee, police, superintend, monitor, keep an eye on, check up on, inspect, administer, be responsible for, etc. This is what's most certainly needed. Most certainly, because this is a super duper wide problem. I'm going to tell you, in the United States, this problem of people wrongfully being sent to prison, which is destroying their lives and causing all type of drama within their families and these people's careers and on and on and on. And they're not being monetarily compensated. I mean, there are lawsuits for monetary compensation amongst other things, but in general, that's not something that is taking place. On the internet, you can find places like New Jersey crime labs under investigation. Just go to your favorite search engine. Here I have Google on my screen. And there's a plethora of different stories that relate to New Jersey crime labs being under investigation with headlines that you can click on. Like, for example, here it says 31st doctor charged in New Jersey laboratory bribery scheme. 31st doctor charged in New Jersey laboratory bribery scheme. Another one right underneath that. And this is disgusting. It says 14,800 New Jersey drug cases potentially undermined after faked lab test. 14,800 New Jersey drug cases potentially undermined after faked lab test. And it just goes on and on and on and on. This is on the first page, by the way. Underneath the words that I typed in to the Google search engine saying New Jersey crime labs under investigation. And you can do this for whatever city or state that you live in. I would say state. Put in the state because it would give the overall compilation of links that pertain to the subject matter that you're seeking. If you live in Massachusetts, put in Massachusetts crime labs under investigation. If you live in New York, put in New York crime labs under investigation. If you live in Dakota, North Dakota, South Dakota, put in South Dakota or North Dakota crime labs under investigation. And you will probably be astounded. And if not, you will probably be very much surprised at what you will find. You will find stuff like crime labs still in crisis. Or this big story that should have been elaborated on in heavy rotation by the mainstream media, the FBI's laboratory's latest scandal. This is an unbelievable story, but it is nonetheless factual and true. You will also see other things like this. New Jersey crime lab labors under heavy loads because these crime labs have so much backlog of tests that they need to run that, well, they are simply not able to get the job done. And I'm totally sure that this is one reason why these results are more often than not falsified. Here's something else to check out in reference to New Jersey. 14,800 New Jersey drug cases potentially undermined after faked lab test, judge says. That's what I alluded to earlier. Here's the article here. The number of drug cases potentially undermined by a state police lab technician accused of fabricating test results in a single marijuana analysis is even higher than the thousands prosecutors had already identified. The judge handling the matter said when this article came out, which was on a Wednesday, and let me see if I can find the date here. June 29th, 2016. So this is about 1 year ago. It could be about 14,800 cases, according to the judge, Edward A. Jerizian, or Jerizian, who was appointed by the state Supreme Court to field conviction challenges stemming from the disclosure that the chemist Kamal Kant Shaha allegedly faked a test result. The judge held a preliminary hearing in Bergen County to lay out the process for vetting such claims. And you'll find that this happens very, very often. The recording and positive identification with their results, they give this without properly analyzing the sample. They don't analyze the sample at all. They just turn it in and give the police officers and or the prosecutors the information, the answer that they're looking for, the conviction that they're looking for. So that's in New Jersey. Here's what you find when you go to New York crime labs under investigation. Did New York State Police scapegoat its crime lab scientists? Another great article to read from 2015, October 4th, and I'm sure the New York Police Department scapegoated its crime lab scientists. It used them as a scapegoat. Here's another one. Crime labs under the microscope after a string of shoddy suspect and fraudulent laboratory tests. This one is from September 1st, 2013. So you can see that this has been going on for quite some time. This is nothing new whatsoever. We have millions of people in the country for decades that have been going to prison wrongfully on false charges, under false lab results. And it is totally criminal, and these people have been killed. Many people have lost their careers. They have lost relationships. They have lost valuable time of their life wrongfully, with no compensation for most of them whatsoever. This is a huge problem that has to be corrected. And the only way it's going to be corrected is that we do something about it. Something very proactive and something very immediate about this, because it could be you, it could be me, and it could be our loved ones and friends, etc., who are charged wrongfully. This is a huge industry in the country because it supports the prison industrial complex. It fills up the prison, which is a private industry. The prisons in the United States is a private industry. In many other countries, prisons are regulated by the government. They're not privately owned like they are in our country. And this may very well be the reason why our country has more prisoners per capita incarcerated than any other country on the globe. And I'm sure that this type of pseudo fake science that's being reported and that's being found all over our nation is certainly a catalyst for this, a platform for this. Science Thursdays, crime labs under investigation for inconsistencies. This is from 2011, March 24th. And this little caption says here, as a result of inconsistent crime lab work, the U.S. Army joins New York and North Carolina in instituting a review of cases and courts in the USA. Controversy at New York State Police lab results in lawsuit. And it goes on and on and on. Put this information on your screen for your location so you can become aware of what is going on in your location, because this information, this type of intelligence is being kept on the DL. I'm talking about way down low. It's not being reported at all in the mainstream media. It's not something in heavy rotation like a lot of the ridiculousness that we get in heavy rotation on the mainstream news. So although it is online, and I'd like to give props to those mainstream media news people who actually have posted these stories online, that have made them available. But as you see, as far as this being in the forefront of the mainstream media news, even as an update, is not something that's going on. CSI is a lie, this article says. This particular one is from The Atlantic. Nearly every examiner in an elite FBI forensic unit gave flawed testimony in almost all trials in which they offered evidence against criminal defendants over more than a 2-decade period before 2000. Adding that the cases include those of 32 defendants sentenced to death. People are dying, and we are eating Cheetos and Fritos and watching the Super Bowl and the World Series and the basketball finals. while people are being killed and have not done anything wrong, or have certainly not done what they've been accused of doing, but they're on death row, they're being killed, people are being sent to jail. The article notes that the admission from the FBI and the Department of Justice confirm long suspected problems with subjective, pattern-based forensic techniques like hair and bite mark comparisons that have contributed to wrongful convictions in more than 1/4 of 329 DNA exoneration cases since 1989. And this article goes on, and I'm just going to give you a bit more and leave the link so you can go and check out this article. The 2012 coverage of problems with FBI forensic analysis and the existence of shoddy forensics has been so clear for so long in so many different states and local jurisdictions that the following conclusion is difficult to avoid. Neither police agencies nor prosecutors are willing to call for the sorts of reforms that would prevent many innocents from being wrongfully convicted and imprisoned, and neither the Republican nor the Democratic Party will force their hands. Ignorance of the problem is no longer an acceptable excuse. Among recent examples, at a Massachusetts drug lab, a chemist was sent to prison after admitting that she faked the results in perhaps tens of thousands of drug cases, calling into question thousands of drug convictions that ended with people in prison. This is the one that featured Annie Dukin and Sonia Farak. Criminality was exposed, and she received her slap on the wrist, I would say, because she only went to jail for a year and a half, Sonia Farak. Annie Dukin went to jail, and she's the person that was first exposed. She only went to jail for about 2 years, 6 or 7 months. That's all. But she caused over 21,580 people to be wrongfully sent to prison. And Sonia Farak was equally responsible for about the same amount, reportedly. Reportedly, this is what's been reported from Massachusetts. The second one here is about St. Paul, Minnesota. An independent review of the crime lab found major errors in almost every area of the lab work, including the fingerprint and crime scene evidence processing that has continued after the lab's drug testing was stopped in July. So this was probably back in 2015. The failures include sloppy documentation, dirty equipment, faulty techniques, and ignorance of basic scientific procedures. Lab employees even used Wikipedia as a technical reference in at least one drug case. The lab lacked any clean area designated for the review and collection of DNA evidence. The lab stored crime scene photos on a computer that anyone could access without a password. In Colorado, the next one goes on to say, the Office of the Attorney General documented inadequate training and alarming lapses at a lab that measured the amount of alcohol in blood. Next, in Detroit, police shut down their crime laboratory after an audit uncovered serious errors in numerous cases. The audit said sloppy work had probably resulted in wrongful convictions, and officials expect a wave of appeals. Auditors re-examined 200 randomly selected shooting cases and found serious errors in 19 of them. But there's much more than this that's going on in Detroit. Next is Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, 3 trace evidence technicians have flunked a routine test administered to uphold the police crime lab's accreditation. Each technician tests hundreds of pieces of evidence a year for traces of blood and semen, so if investigators determine that the methods are problematic, it could throw countless court cases into question. Last in this list is North Carolina. In North Carolina, agents withheld exculpatory evidence or distorted evidence in more than 230 cases over a 16-year period. 3 of these cases resulted in execution. There was widespread lying, corruption, and pressure from prosecutors and other law enforcement officials on crime lab analysis to produce results that would help secure convictions, and the pressure worked. That is a highly incomplete sample from just the last decade. The police crime laboratory in Houston, Texas, already reeling from a scandal that has led to retesting of evidence in 360 cases, now faces a much larger crisis that could involve many thousands of cases over a 25-year period. This is a huge, enormous, gigantic problem. People are going to jail wrongfully, and we are just going to have to do something about this. We're going to have to, as the saying goes, wake up and get active. Now that the information is in your brain about this type of nonsense, we most certainly have to do something about this. Absolutely ridiculous. This story goes on and on and on. Please go and check this out. Now, the article as far as the FBI, that's another article that I'm going to leave a link to so that you see from the very top, the crap is rolling downhill, as the old nasty saying goes. FBI admits flaws in hair analysis over decades. FBI admits flaws in hair analysis over decades. Unbelievable. Let me give props to the WashingtonPost.com. Over the years, I've seen how consistent and how in-depth and how helpful their website is. Thank you, WashingtonPost.com. This article I won't even go into because it is just something you need to check out for yourself, let marinate, and let that be extrapolated over the whole nation of 50 United States. All of the lives that are being wrecked. Unbelievable. As I said, the forensic crime lab, drug labs, most of them are not regulated. I found out that many industries aren't regulated. I found out through a whole bunch of other research for other topics to present to you that are very important to society are not regulated. And finally, let me give you a list of how many places that I have discovered and that are reported and that you can research. How many places, states or towns, counties, what have you, on this list that I have here, how many places that are currently under investigation because of false positive results, because of falsified information from scientists. Some of these are Houston, Texas, Baltimore, Maryland, Chicago, Illinois, Cleveland, Ohio, Los Angeles, California, Fort Worth, Texas, Austin, Texas, Montana, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Texas, Seattle, Washington, Virginia, West Virginia, Florida, Miami, in Florida especially, New Jersey, Detroit, New York, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Philadelphia, North Carolina, Oregon, San Francisco, California, Santa Clara County, California, and Broward County, Florida. And lastly, and certainly not least, Orange County, California. That was 26 different locations that I gave you in the nation where this problem exists and is under investigation, court trials, all type of stuff to supposedly clean up the mess, to supposedly get some type of oversight, some type of management, some type of control, some type of policy in order. This is why I said from the very beginning that this whole forensic drug lab, crime lab industry in the state has to be regulated. Duh. My name is Pate, here for the Topkats Pride.